Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today is September 5th, 2025, and we are here this Friday for the Colorado Forest Health Council Legislative Committee. I'm Limerick County Commissioner Jody Shag-McNally, Chair of this committee, and I welcome you all. Courtney, if you wouldn't mind doing roll call, we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yes. Let's see. I'll just run down the list. Samantha Albert. Like Samantha's not here right now. Pat Dorsey. Christina Bury is excused. Commissioner Jody Shag-McNally.
Present. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioner. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Morning, Mark. Julie Stencil.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. And Allison Lurch.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Allison. So we do have quorum today, and I imagine a few more people may join us also.
Great. And I'll try to recognize them when we come in. So thank you all. So with a quorum, we have our first item on the agenda, which would be approval of the August 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to at least review even briefly? Any additions, changes, concerns? Well, then I would welcome a motion to approve those minutes and look for a second.
So move.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Thank you, Julie. And there's a first and a second. Any further discussion? Wonderful. So let's, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Wonderful. Great. We're moving. We're cruising through this agenda. It's only 8:32. So just want to give you all a heads up. I do have to give a speech at 10:05 and for a new youth campus that we invested in 2022, I believe. And so I will probably have to beg out just a little bit towards the end of the meeting and maybe hand it over to Courtney and Allison. But let's start with our next presentation from the Colorado State Forest Service. And are you doing that presentation, James, or who's doing the presentation today?
No, I'm not. It's going to be Tim Reeder and Steve Rudolph from our team. We didn't have a set time, so I told them that we'd had to do some administration stuff. So they're going to pop on at around 8:40.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move down the agenda and just maybe took a really quick look at the next item, which is the calendar dates and plan presentation. So we can look at that. Are you okay with bringing that up real quick? Courtney, I know I'm kind of throwing your curveball.
I will. I'll be here and I'll be there in a moment.
Okay. So our next meeting is going to be September 19th. And again, it's an hour and a half. If we don't think the presentation warrants it to have a full hour, we always can end early, but it's better probably to have a little more time if we need more time for questions. And I believe if we can enlarge that, that will be the DNR presentation and updates. And so that is what's planned in September. And then in October, we have not settled on our presentation number 4, those next 3 dates. So we have some opportunities here. We had a great presentation last week from the Wildfire Watershed Resiliency Initiative group, or I probably got those out. Allison, did I even get that close? The work group. Yeah, the work group. Yeah.
Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for Resilient Colorado.
Yep, for Resilient Colorado. And Rob, you were there the other day. So only have Pat Dorsey. Thank you for joining us today. So for any burning desires for October 3rd or the next date, for any presentations that people really would love to see what's going on. And I had an idea looking at Rob. The Nature Conservancy is involved with a lot of initiatives around the state. And it might be interesting to see what our partners are doing and how we can leverage or partner there legislative wise. Rob, do you think that would be appropriate to have you all present and hear some recommendations from you, legislative thoughts that you might have? Thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We'd be very happy to. Thank you.
Anyone have any concerns about that, or that would give them a whole month? And Courtney, that would take care of you not have to chase down a speaker. I'm sure Rob can be there. So does that work for everybody? Great. I look forward to that. And Robbie and I still need to circle back and have a conversation. So can I send my staff towards you to find
Yes,
something?
absolutely.
So,
That'd be great.
great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome. Allison.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was thinking, I'm looking at you, Julie, and I'm thinking about our utility and water providers throughout the state. I wondered if we wanted to hear perspectives from them. So whether it's Excel directly or other water utilities, does not have to be something that we hear from, but I would love to hear from everybody in this room of other folks and other entities out there that are doing a lot of this work, or at least investing, in forest health work, but maybe not be like directly working in forest health and wildfire mitigation. So that might be a nice perspective.
Sure. I can tell you from Excel's perspective, we have a pretty robust team working on the wildfire mitigation piece. Lots of moving parts there. I am confident someone would be more than happy to come in from that team and present.
So would that, you think if we gave them enough time in mid-October, that would work, Julie?
I don't think so, but I can certainly check on that today and circle back, Allison, on timing if that works.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes. I'm trying to track here on these two proposals. Julie, would you be handling the water side of that as well then, or in that presentation? Because I think
No, we would just be handling more the electric and or gas utility side of that.
as to Allison's proposal there, I would be very interested in the water side of it and the water perspective, because at the end of the day, that is the driving use for forestry in Colorado. I mean, that is the big hitter of them all. That is the cleanup batter. So I think I would recommend that that the utilities people don't handle it, then we look for some source of water input for the state.
Courtney, do we have space on our calendar? I don't have the calendar up on my computer right now. I just wondered how many presentations we have slated.
We have 3 in October. We have the 3rd, the 17th, and the 31st. Can we
Yes.
go ahead and maybe put in having Julie and Excel or utilities thing, and maybe just focus on, because we also could bring in some recovery work for just saying that we could ask rural electrics too to come, but I think we can maybe look at bringing more of the watersheds kind of discussion into the last meeting, if that works.
Mhm.
Because that might be a lot to put into one meeting,
Yeah.
utilities and. Does everyone feel okay with that?
Mhm.
I can't see you all, so, because
Yeah,
we have.
that sounds good.
Okay, so hopefully in just about 7 minutes, Courtney, we got things all lined up so that you're all set for October, and hopefully that saves you some time with chasing things down and getting folks. So anyone have any concerns or any questions about what we just laid out for October? Mr. Morgan.
On the water side of it, I was thinking not just water utility, but the egg side of it as well, but the irrigation side of it is included in the water. I mean, I'm looking at all water uses within the state, not just a water utility, is what I was suggesting.
Allison, before you speak, I was going to say maybe we can look at bringing some folks who work with like extension, CSU extension, or some folks who are partnering with farmers and water and maybe even soil health with that, because that's also another kind of component of, forest health is soil health and things. So I don't know if that appeals to you, Mr. Morgan, but Allison, go ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Mark, I like where you're going with this. I'm wondering if we could have West Slope and Front Range representation to really spread out the presentation. So maybe having a few presenters or two at least, so we can get that whole statewide view.
No, I agree. I think it would be great. We could look at really focusing on the Western Slope if you want. I think there's some great, and I don't know if we're looking at only farming or looking at maybe some high or some altitude ranching and some other agricultural producers there too. So that's a thought. Courtney.
Yeah, just so that I can capture it in the notes and know who to coordinate with. I'm familiar with the utilities, at least that are on our council. If anyone has ideas for other water users, could they put them in the chat? Because I'm not as familiar with them and wouldn't know who to reach out to.
Mr. Morgan.
Just, I know more locally, but I'm pretty familiar with the general manager for North Poudre Irrigation. And then you have Northern Water here controls most of the water out north end for the combined projects. You have both municipal and ag water. So I don't know those people as well, but you might reach out to Northern Water. I mean, they're pretty aggressive over here right now. We've got two huge new reservoirs around Fort Collins, one planning and one just finished.
Yeah, and I think we should make sure we're getting this attached to the wildfire, the forest health, the ag, and Commissioner Dean, I see you. I think, yeah, I was just going to suggest that, Pat, the Colorado River District, but how that connection all the way down into the farmers, kind of trying to make that connection.
Also think very much so that you have to get that West Slope representation. It has to be from both sides of the ridge here because there are very different uses. That's, I think, would be real important.
I absolutely agree. Commissioner Medina, you had your hand raised, and Pat Dorsey, that's a great offer. Maybe Pat said she could help find a contact if you'd like to work with her. Commissioner Medina.
Thank you. I was trying to type it in the chat, but maybe even like our water commissioners from the Western Slope, they might be able to give an insight on the ag portion as well as other water usage in the Western Slope. And even maybe the group over here is the water conservation. I can give you the full name of it. Always get my tongue tied when I try to say their full name, but I can give you the contact for that if that's something that you might be interested in.
Yes, would you send those to Courtney? Courtney, does that work for you?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, our next speakers are here, so I want to honor their time. And so let's just make sure that I'm closing the loop on that item number 4. I think we got a lot done in just less than 10 minutes. So I think the team, that's great. And we helped Courtney and them kind of maybe arrange some times that they don't have to chase people down. So anybody have any concerns? I'll ask one more time because otherwise I think we're set for October now. And I think also on one of those agendas, Courtney, we should, Christina Bury and I should probably give an update on kind of our presentation that we want to show or give to the legislators and put that on the agenda so we can maybe in the 1st of October or maybe the end of this month, just so we have enough time to make sure if we have any concerns or kinks, we can work them out before the holidays. And I know that's coming up soon. I think it's this week or next week you get to get on the system and apply for the time. Courtney?
Yes, I did reach out to the scheduler on Wednesday and he said we're still early, but he did send me some paperwork that needs to be filled out and we need to have a legislator as a sponsor. I think we had talked about Lisa Cutter, Senator Cutter being the sponsor. So I need to work with Daphne or I need to work with Allison to get all that paperwork filled out and submitted, but we're still ahead of schedule.
Great. And I also think if we need another sponsor, maybe they both could be at having, I'm sure Julie McCluskey and the Speaker of the House would be another great person to put on that, maybe show a little leadership seniority there too, because Lisa's got a great idea too. So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to close that. We've got that agenda item taken care of. Let me just see what's the last one. Okay. So we kind of took care of a little bit of 5 as well, but let's now turn this over. I'm not sure if Steve or Tim's taking over, but I'll turn it over to you from the Colorado State Forest Service to give us the presentation. And if everyone could just kind of raise their hand when they want to speak or ask questions, but welcome, and we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We'll share this presentation. I'll share my screen here.
While he's pulling that up, I've got a shaky internet connection, so I'm just going to be off camera for a little bit. When Christine and I were talking about what we wanted to talk about, there's been a lot of conversation from this group regarding biomass, wood product industry, and a lot of the things that Mr. Morgan has been asking about. And so we've kind of worked with Steve and Tim here to kind of circle in and really zone in on those specific topics that have been of interest to this group. And so that's where we're kind of taking this one, connecting with Courtney and Allison. It sounds like it was a good way to take it. But these two are issue area experts, and we're happy to have them as part of the team, and I'll turn it back over to them. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, James. Steve and I will kind of do a combined presentation here. I'll go through a few slides, and then Steve will complete the presentation. So, Steve, if you'll just cycle through the slides on my prompt, that'd be great. So again, thanks for inviting us. We like opportunities to share a little bit of the work that Steve and I do, and a little bit of giving you a sense of our industry, challenges, opportunities. So go ahead, Steve. And again, I just want to reinforce that, you know, obviously you guys are familiar with our organization, but we have a number of programs, program delivery. It all fits under the umbrella of our mission statement. So Steve and I, you know, on a daily basis, make sure we're aware of what we're doing and what we're prioritizing fits under our mission statement. Go ahead, Steve, next, please. And specifically for our program, the Colorado Wood Utilization and Marketing Program, this is kind of our mission statement, if you will. You know, this is what gets Steve and I up every morning. Is we would like to be recognized as the leading innovator for all things forest products, information, assistance, service, certainly education and outreach. Go ahead, Steve. Now, I want to get into kind of the principal content of what we were asked to share with you guys this morning. And I'm not going to share a lot of quantitative data, statistics and things like that, but I just want to give you a sense of what we're hearing regarding our industry partners as we go day to day, work with them on a number of different projects and efforts and initiatives. And certainly closures and production curtailments have been a big part, not only in Colorado, but across the West. And, you know, I think we've been a little fortunate. I think we've had more mill closures in some of our neighboring Western states, have had them here. But that's certainly a lot of what dominates the discussion. And again, production is very important, just from the standpoint of most of these mills incur, you know, obviously fixed costs. And if they're producing at a percentage of what they're capable of producing, it really affects their revenue and their profit potential, their ability to pay workers and that kind of thing. So certainly that third ballot item is something we're hearing all the time. It's just a lack of certainty and stability over the administration priorities. And we're all familiar with what's been going on the past several months there. I starred the fourth bullet because this is something I've been doing wood utilization work for 20 years now with the State Forest Service. And I've never heard, you know, it's typical that during election cycles, you know, I think most of our industries face, you know, certain slowdowns. Forest products is not any different, but what's been different with this cycle is they typically rebound in past election cycles. And from the industry partners that we've talked to, this hasn't happened. And it's really posing a significant challenge for our mills. They're not getting calls. The people that typically are purchasing their products are not calling to purchase those products. And again, cash flow, all that types of things that are being a consequence of that. So that's something I haven't heard in the last 20 years. I think it's pretty important. So we're paying a lot of attention to that, Steve and I. And then again, just to kind of link up, somewhat analogous to the administrative priorities, of course, there's specific challenges associated with the impacts of the executive orders, memos, and some of the tariffs as well. All right, next, Steve. Talk to you a little bit about maybe what we're seeing on the expansion and startup side. I think we are seeing some expansion of some of our industry partners, particularly in the area of increasing their utilization of their mill residues. Now, I think part of that has been driven by the closure of the gypsum facility. They're not there to take a volume of forest residuals that they were in the past, but also to just the underlying need for our industry to constantly evolve and seek out new products and new markets. Several of our mills we talked to are exploring and developing new products. Part of that is in response to the fact that their existing markets are not performing right now. So we're seeing some activity there. And startups, we are seeing, it tends to be a reflection of scale. We are seeing some small startups in the wildfire mitigation industries, mills, and even traditional timber harvesting companies are coming online, if you will, in Colorado. And what's been particularly key to help support those startups have been some of our tools that we've had through the legislature, the Wildfire Mitigation Loan Fund, workforce grants, and then again, the federal Wood Innovations Program has been a tremendous value to help support these startups. Next, Steve. I think this will be where I'll conclude it, and then I'll hand off the next slide to Steve. But I do want to share with you, despite, I guess, for lack of a better word, angst surrounding the administration's priorities and some of the changes, some of the delays, in terms of biomass support, agencies like Rural Development and the U.S. Forest Service, we've actually seen them develop and roll out new assistance programs during the past couple of months. They continue to be very responsive, even with some of the internal issues they face as in the Trump with their respective agencies in the administration. And the Wood Innovations Program, that's certainly not a new program, but after some brief delays, like all the seemingly grant programs were put through, they did announce that Colorado received a little over $1.5 million this year. Went to half a dozen businesses across the state. Something that's just come out and available in the past several weeks, the Wood Manufacturing Assistance Team. This is done in collaboration with the U.S. Forest Service and a consultant team headed by the Beck Group. And there's another expertise, but this is free, no cost technical assistance on site or virtual on anything that any of our industry partners may be facing. Upgrades, financing, exploring new markets. If there's some kind of something in their process that's holding them up production wise. So that's recently been announced. Steve and I are working to do a lot of outreach aggressively on that to make our industry aware of that resource. Another program that has just come out in the past several weeks is the Timber Production Expansion Program. It's basically a loan guarantee. This is from our rural development partners with input from our Forest Service partners as well. This is a 90% guarantee. So if any of our partners are working with their traditional lenders to expand, to start up, to purchase new, equipment. The lender they're working from can apply for this program and receive the guarantee, and that allows, it does a number of things for the bank. Of course, reduces their risk, and it makes them better able to provide more attractive terms to the applicants that are requesting financing. So again, this is something Steve and I are doing some outreach on. It's a great complement to our current loan program that we have in the State Forest Service. So those two programs are, like I said, the Forest Service has been really responsive during this era of kind of dynamics associated with their priorities. Temporary bridge program, we're pretty excited. That's just a couple-year program, but it's available to the states. We were awarded a grant this year to purchase temporary bridges for timber sales stewardship work. We're just putting together, developing the program, but we'll be able to rent those bridges out to participating contractors so that it will help them access areas in need of treatment, but maybe they have some kind of water course concern, something like that, that these bridges will help them avoid any kind of negative impacts to the areas that they're working in. Hazardous fuels transportation, that one's, I'm not going to spend too much time there. I think we have one or two applicants that get awarded every year, but it's pretty complex. A lot of eligibility criteria that some of our industry partners and some of the biomass that's out there has trouble qualifying for. And then the final kind of current positive, I guess, from our federal partners involves the EPA. They are going to be taking a good look at the renewable fuel standard, and that's basically credits that industries, if they're producing some form of fossil fuel, not fossil fuel, but renewable fuel, they can get credits. It's been, federal lands have been accepted in the past. So that obviously affects participation by our industry in those markets. So what the EPA is currently doing is doing a rules revision, which will ultimately, if passed, will result that some of those federal lands will now qualify. Residuals that are created when a sawmill manufactures lumber, if those residuals are from logs from federal lands, you can now qualify those residuals for a company that might want to pursue some type of fuels product or participate in a transportation market. So those are pretty positive responses, I think, from our federal partners, and that I think will have an impact in supporting our industry in Colorado. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Steve, to complete our presentation.
Before you do that, there's one question from, excuse
sure.
me, Tinford, but just, he wanted to know, James Lucero said, correct if he's wrong, but did DNR and the Gov's office, they did comment on this EPA renewable fuel standard rule revision recently.
That was
Is
more a
that
question
true?
for Allison.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, James. I was just trying to be helpful.
Yep, no worries.
All right, let's go ahead and continue then. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'm Steve Rudolph. I'm Tim's counterpart. I've been in the wood utilization and marketing program for just over a year, and I'm based in Colorado Springs. Been with our agency for quite a while, though. But yeah, so our revolving loan fund over the years has lent about $3 million, and we currently have 10 active loans. We work through the support of economic development partners and combine kind of our expertise with the timber industry and forest management with their ability to underwrite loans and examine the financials. So every business that participates is, as best set up as they can be to succeed. So, this is not a grant award, it's a loan, but there are significant kind of boosts in the flexibility of the program. For one, most federal programs or, the Wood Innovations grants, they don't cover any moving equipment, any rolling stock. So our loan program can come in and help with financing equipment needed to get work done in the woods. They're competitive rates, and really there's no intention of undercutting traditional lenders if folks have strong relationships with those lenders. But this kind of comes in for some of our newer businesses and some of those folks that might not have as long of a history as those lenders are looking for, because it's a volatile industry and they're kind of understandably sometimes a little bit risk averse, the traditional lenders. So this is kind of where we can come in. And, one promising and encouraging sign is that I think the last probably 4 businesses that we worked with are young folks starting out in the industry, both traditional logging, wildfire mitigation, and on the sawmill side of things. So being able to come in and help those folks that wouldn't be able to get traditional financing really helps our industry move along. And we've recently seen an interest from folks in the conservation financing arena that has traditionally more so been focused on how to finance treatments on the ground, taking more of an interest in funding infrastructure and investments in supply chain, and seeing that as being a real bottleneck for our industry right now. So, like I said, transporting wood from the forest to the facility is really always the bottleneck, especially in a state like ours that is, just very difficult with infrastructure and access. There are ways that foresters can work to make projects more economical in the woods, certainly by working with folks like Mark. But certainly there are projects where long haul distances are just going to impact contractors' bottom lines. But certainly there are 2 things to focus on there, though, or one thing to focus on is what can we do to make projects, more workable, but, keeping in mind that transportation piece. So California is an interesting case. They've had several initiatives and financial incentives to kind of look at that are related to wood processing infrastructure, workforce development, and identifying really priority locations for processing biomass. So really their study and several studies that have kind of looked at the same thing reached the same conclusion that really the most important thing and one that's kind of going to set everything else up for potential success is adding new facilities in kind of strategic locations throughout their state. And I think, the same would be true for ours. So, adding value-added products with higher profit margins can be helpful for mills. The ability to aggregate biomass and kind of be able to haul material with some economies of scale can be helpful. And, locating treatments in areas that make economic sense can also be helpful. But really being able to maintain our existing industry infrastructure and add more in strategic locations where treatments need to occur is going to be necessary to maintain and improve our timber industry. So I would also just mention, if you look at a map of mills across the state, it looks like we've got pretty strong coverage across our forested landscapes. But when you start to stratify these facilities by size, a lot of them are very small, maybe a truckload of wood a week. And it's a couple folks doing really labor intensive work. So we need to maintain these facilities, but also add more that can, utilize more wood closer to where it's being generated. Yeah, Pat.
Yeah, Steve, California also has been experimenting with like wood campuses, right? Where a number of like wood facilities will kind of share a bigger area. What do you think about the potential of that for Colorado?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting concept and one that we're, hopefully going to be working pretty closely with Larimer County as they implement their biomass strategy. But yeah, that was really kind of the most important finding that they had was not diving into any individual product pathway, but how to aggregate the biomass and get it to sort of a campus where, yeah, you could have multiple users that could all, really utilize their niche for the highest and best use. Just kind of editorializing, I think that's another real challenge with our industry in the state is with things being so spread out. I think one real challenge for the sawmill owners is how many hats they have to wear. Not having that ability to really specialize and lean into one thing because they've got to make use of so many different products. Another thing we've done is we've tried drawing that connection between the need for carbon in agricultural soils and the abundant carbon source that's coming off of our forestry treatments. So this is kind of a work in progress to build those networks. There are certainly soil health benefits with products like compost and biochar, but the cost barriers are challenging. It's a similar industry in the sense that they're production ag is very low margins. So being adding another step to the process is certainly a challenge. And then we've had, seen kind of an uptick in interest from the waste management community. For one, they've really long understood the business model of aggregating stuff that's, spread across the landscape with transfer stations. And they've really got an interest in keeping wood because it's large and decomposes really slowly out of their landfills. So, again, the Larimer County, one of their biomass processing network, their campus that they might be looking at would be in conjunction with a new landfill. So being able to divert wood from the landfill to a higher and better use. And then another operation, Phoenix Recycling down in Bayfield, kind of down in Tim's neck of the woods. We met with them last fall, and they're looking at getting sited for a large compost operation using woody biomass as the carbon source.
So I'll just say, as the Larimer County Commissioner, I've been pushing and really glad we got that biomass study and out touring the new landfill and having been at the seat and talking about this for the last 3 or plus years. This is something that is getting really close to where we can really start showing and talking about it. And we have some new kind of opportunities that have come up in the last week and a half. So just really grateful for you presenting that, and hopefully sometime soon we can I'll come and walk around and check it out. So if you go to the solid waste, our website on Larimer County, I think there's some drone footage of the new landfill, though this part hasn't started. The other parts have started, and it's really got some of the main buildings got built really quick, but we're building a landfill not to really operate it up as a landfill. We're trying to make it as a kind of a waste shed. And implementing that strategy, as you said, Steve. So really excited you mentioned that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's great to hear. Yeah, Mark.
Yeah. One comment for Pat's question about wood campuses, that they can be really good and they can be a real problem in the sense that the products are of so low value, especially if you're going back to the agricultural market, that one of the keys that we found for success is making sure you direct your transportation to the ultimate facility that's going to use it in the end. You can't really afford 2 or 3 transportation costs by putting in a facility and then taking it back out and try to move it to an alternate facility for use. So one of the keys that we found is that making that first choice right in the woods to get that product to the ultimate end user. And that kind of goes against wood campuses. It's really great sometimes to go to a consolidated point to better utilize it. But if you're getting any kind of production of scale, you're better off to make that choice right at the time and move the product immediately to that site. That's just something I think you should guard against is all.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you,
Morgan.
And I would say too, a consideration I think that you probably agree with too is that campus, has to be located in a place that provides some sort of strategic advantage. So close to the treatments, and also has a freight advantage.
It can be a good thing if you're consolidating material to make it economically viable. It's a negative thing if you've already got the product and you're cycling it through another transportation cycle is all, because as you brought up earlier in your presentation, freight's everything. It literally runs half of our costs right now for wood products in production. So getting it to the right home the first time is pretty critical.
Yeah, thanks. So just some of the legislation that shapes our work in our state's industry, state legislation. Previously touched on our loan fund. We've got a sales and use tax exemption for wood that was killed by mountain pine beetle and spruce beetle. That is set to sunset July 1st of 2027. we, continue to hear about that being used by our industry partners. We've got our workforce development grant program that supports cost sharing of about 15 positions annually. I've been able to head that program up, and it's been enjoyable to kind of see that come to fruition. And then we recently had a small grant program that Tim headed up that recently sunset. So just some resources that we've been working on or are aware of that kind of help narrow that decision-making framework. First would be the you've probably heard of it for years now, but our woody biomass assessment. I'm currently working with our communications and communities division to finish editing the assessment. We're going section by section since it would be a really massive document, and they're kind of broken up into discrete sections anyway. So we'll post those online as they become available. And section 5, which is also a market study of the state's wood markets, is available and was published last spring as a GTR with the Rocky Mountain Research Station. So that's GTR 445, and it's like I said, it's a market study kind of revisiting some of the work that Kurt Mackes did about 20 years ago. And then section 3 is kind of probably going to be the other section that folks find the most utility from, and that's the quantifying biomass across our state. So one of the great things that's come out of this assessment is our colleagues that did the data analysis really kind of worked through that learning curve, and now they can analyze the FIA data in our state pretty rapidly to answer more specific questions. So a couple weeks ago, the Colorado Mass Timber Coalition had a question about how much aspen is on the landscape and how much is being utilized, and they were able to churn through the FIA data and produce results really quickly. So yeah, Mark, you're muted, Mark.
On your woody biomass, one of the big questions that I know that most of the people in the industry is asking is there are studies on how much woody biomass we have, different species, different areas and everything. But what is the economic, call it tipping point or whatever, for the ability to remove this biomass? There's a point here. Everybody's trying to decide how much of it we're going to actually remove and how much of it we're not going to remove. There's a cost driver there for all of these programs and managing agencies where it just gets to be uneconomical to remove it. So there's a difference there between manipulating it on the landscape and leaving it there or actually removing it. And that's a huge piece of this whole complex problem, is the economic side of this. You guys get great data for what it actually costs to remove stuff in different areas. I guess the question that everybody I know is asking is, how much of this are we going to actually remove? We get a lot of planning done and say it would be nice to do this, or we're going to remove this or all of this. And in reality, for example, right now the Forest Services, the Federal Forest Service has kind of answered that question for themselves. And we're in the business of building some really big brush piles that will be open burned in the wintertime. And so they've determined that they can economically remove most of this stuff, especially tough after the energy company there closed up. But I guess any input that you could give, I think would be helpful for the economic side of it. Any information that you would have. You guys usually do pretty good work and you have sources. And that's one thing that myself and a lot of other contractors I know would be looking for.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, I think that's a really good point. And, with the FIA data, one of the challenges is that it's painted with a pretty broad brush. It's here's what's on the landscape minus what is, legislatively restricted from harvesting. Then you start to try and move from that large, high level to what's operable. and there's a lot of different filters that get applied. What's accessible just by roads that are existing? Where's the existing industry? What's the slope? So really that's I would say that's kind of almost like an index to see, what's potentially out there on the landscape, and then it really needs to be drilled down to what's operable. So I would say, in talking to Amanda from Science and Data, this isn't the end of the analysis. This is kind of the start of it. Of, okay, what's on the landscape, and then I think one potential next step to look at is where do we have abundant biomass and no infrastructure or struggling infrastructure that can be helped. No, I mean, we welcome your input too on where we have projects, what can we do to make them more economical? How can we, tie some of the projects with low or no value material with something that has value to kind of offset that. I mean, there's a lot that can be done just on the sale prep side to make things more workable.
Exactly. And I don't want to make light of what you do, because in the past, over the years, the information that your groups have provided going way back, I kind of view it as going back 20, 25 years. You guys provided the information, and I called it the treasure map. You put what was out there, and it was up to us to figure out how to utilize it. And I still look to that very much so. You bring up information and markets and stuff that I found very usable over the years. The one piece to this puzzle that I have not been able to figure out lately, and you just mentioned it, your utilization standards and your timber sale prep operations, what we're going to do on the ground, oftentimes tells us how much of this material we're going to get. And that's where I'm attempting to influence this. We need to write those standards first, because that will dictate how much material we're going to have and what it's going to be. And then we can take the X marks the spot on the treasure map and try to find a use for it. So I really do appreciate what you do, and I do go through the information that you put out pretty carefully, and thank you.
No, thank you, Mark. And I think too, just to that previous point of aggregating biomass, we talk about it on the physical side of things of, how can we stitch some of these smaller projects together, but I think we need to do a better job in working cross-boundary or, interagency between, the state, federal government collaboratives, and just kind of get on the same page with being able to convey, what our volumes are going to be going forward. And, we're a long ways off from being able to have, say, a 20-year, roadmap of what's going to be offered, but any things that we can do to aid that planning and kind of aggregate that planning to say this is really what's available in this county or on this landscape, I think would be helpful. So certainly stuff that we've had in mind. So again, the Larimer County Woody Biomass Strategy, we've seen this as a framework that other entities that want to take or follow a similar assessment, steps that they should follow. So kind of to my previous point, this is a good way that they've, been able to quantify the resource and without, picking one or two specific product pathways, really just saying, here's what's on the landscape, here's what needs treatment, and sort of portraying their collective openness to industry. We continue to work with our partners in the Department of Forest and Rangeland Stewardship. Dr. Sri Baral is kind of taking over some of that industry research that Kurt Mackes had done for so many years. And then recent report, there's a lag between when they're able to conduct the surveys and when they're able to produce the reports, but it's still really valuable industry trends. Our partners with Bureau of Business and Economic Research at the University of Montana just released a report, resource bulletin of their research of our industry over time. And then just one more thing that we've got coming up is a Ponderosa Pine Utilization Summit. led by the Council of Western State Foresters in Flagstaff later this fall. So looking forward to attending that and seeing what is able to come of it.
Could you expand a little bit more on that, Steve? What are some of the goals or outcomes of that conference? And I haven't heard of that conference before. Could you expand a little bit more on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so Tim's been on the planning committee, but really, like I said, it's the Council of Western State Foresters and our Forest Products Committee, spanning all the Western states, kind of see ponderosa pine utilization and that landscape as really, comprising a lot of the WUI and needing treatment. So it's a kind of a shared goal or a shared kind of issue that all of us have is being able to utilize that ponderosa pine resource. But it's going to be, is it 2 days of sessions, and then 1 day of a field tour. And then hopefully, something that we explore there is going to drive our Council of Western State Foresters Forest Products Committee work plan for the next year. So Tim, would you mind elaborating a little bit more of kind of what, so there's a draft agenda out, but Tim might be able to speak to it a little better.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got distracted on another window. I was trying to get the link to the summit and paste it, but so it's a collaborative effort between the West, our counterparts across the West. We'll be talking on issues related to supply, infrastructure, markets, traditional wood products and ponderosa pine, some of the new products, private industry participation and involvement. So it's a pretty deep dive. We'll cover some of the needs in terms of the forest resource, but some of those are fairly well known. But we're going to focus the majority of it on several sessions, kind of, carved up, like I said. So pretty good expertise. I think we've requested kind of a keynote opening remarks by the Chief of the Forest Service. Laura McCarthy, the state forester for New Mexico, will be there to kind of get us started and get us off on the right foot. So you can find it under the Council of Western State Foresters website under events. Looks like Pat found it. Great. Thanks, Pat. I got lost down a rabbit hole of sorts trying to find it. But yeah, I encourage you to take a look at it. Steve said 2 days, kind of some discussion, networking, and then a day we're going to visit some of the industries that have been kind of in Arizona that are doing some of the work out there.
Great. I appreciate you expanding and sharing that information. I found it very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further? So this is your contact information. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts on the presentation? Thank you both for being here today and sharing such a comprehensive presentation of the work you're doing. And thanks again for mentioning. We're really proud of the work we're doing in Larimer County. We're working really hard trying to get this all to fruition. And I'm doing everything I can to find pots of money to get this rolling. But anyway, anyone else have anything else they'd like to share or ask? Raise your hand.
One question, do you have any information or, I've been trying to track down, biochar information. We've got to get rid of this biomass somehow, and we've got to thin it out fast. We got to decide what we're going to move and then what we're going to do with it. And biochar appears to me to have a very specialty use in small amounts, like we do down here at Berthoud, or that you've got, as you mentioned, the agricultural market, which is somewhere in that $80–90 a ton range delivered on the site. But the Forest Service in the past has looked into putting processed biochar back on the forest itself. And I've heard stories that it's utilizable or not. And then I see here just recently, biochar was also in the past used as a cattle feed supplement, and now I see that the feeders regulatory authorities say that it's actually not a good thing. So that market has just dried up recently. But do you see federal land management agencies with any kind of a formalized program to put biochar back on the forest? Well, I guess I'm asking is, there are biochar producing systems that are mobile and there are ones that are stationary. And I've been kind of looking into the mobile side of things here quite a bit. And what have you heard about that lately? I guess what's the current scientific side of that? Is that a selling point, or are they actually going to do that? Because it's
I'll maybe go first, Mark. I haven't seen any wide scope or scale effort.
okay.
There's just so many questions. There's almost too much information about biochar, and it's hard to validate. In small plots and trials on forest soils, it's anecdotal, I'm afraid. I mean, just to avoid pile burning. Yeah, maybe that's what with some of these place-based or portable kilns. The most work I've seen is with reclamation of abandoned mine sites. I think some of our state and federal agencies have seen good response there. But that's, again, they've done some studies, but that's, I think, Steve, you can certainly weigh in, what you've seen or not seen.
I've also seen where they're using it for plugging abandoned orphan wells, oil and gas wells. They've been using it for there too. But go ahead, Steve. Thanks.
Yeah, I would just say, kind of we do occasionally connect with folks that are looking at putting in large biochar facilities, and I guess just one of the challenges that I see with biochar is that not a lot of what we hear about it or what exists is at the right scale for us. So the folks that we talk to that are kicking the tires with a few different states and looking at putting in facilities, I mean, they're talking at on the scale of like every stick of wood that's harvested in the state would be required to run this facility. And then on the other side of things, a lot of those mobile units, I see a lot of utility in things like neighborhood cleanup, where there's slash piles that everybody drags to the curb, and kind of that volume of material. But are they going to work at a scale and a pace that is able to keep up with what's coming into a log landing, on a production job? I've heard kind of concerns about the speed of them and that just being another bottleneck in the operation. So yeah, I would say the scale of it is challenging, but that is another encouraging development is the facility in Sedalia, and we'll be working with their folks too to do some demos and just show the utility of it in the kind of residential landscaping space too.
I've been trying to look at it, and you're exactly right in the comments. And what I'm looking at it right now is the value of it might be in the reduction of piles and everything. But right now, I can't find an economic outlet. I can't find a way to get paid on the back end for what's coming out the spout. I guess that's what I'm coming to. So then it becomes a service. Make hazardous fuels go away, and that's the way it has to be funded. You see what I'm getting at? And I can't find a funding source coming out the spout. And there's some great new equipment out. I was out and looked at some in Oregon that I think might be pretty effective in the mobile stuff. It's not light. They come in at about 90,000 pounds, but they're movable. And they look like they might actually work this time. They've got the engineering problems. I owned a big biochar burner there for a short time about 5 years ago. And I came by it in a roundabout way, but it was a total failure, and I didn't want to have to get into that again. But I've come back. We're drowning in this biomass, so I'm looking for solutions. I guess that's where I'm at.
NRCS used to have some aggressive incentives for both small producers and land appliers. Specific practices, Colorado adopted those practices a couple years ago, but I do not know where it stands with all the administrative priorities affecting the Natural Resource Conservation Service as well. A lot of it was ag-based and agricultural community. Steve and I spoke with one of the directors at CSU of the Ag Innovation Program there, and she says that the water holding capacity is probably what will motivate ag producers to adopt something like biochar, but they're concerned about running over their land.
I went and studied, did some research on a 4-year study, and the water retention deal did not prove out to be true. I've chased the rabbit. I've chased the rabbit for the cattle feed. I've chased the water retention over a 4-year program. They got a bump the second year, but in all their control plots on an agricultural scale, it went away after. They didn't get it the first year. They got it the second year. They didn't get it the third or fourth year, and they didn't get any increased yields.
Right. Yeah.
The large scale ones there, and I mean, you guys do great work. You're the smart guys. Is there a way we can charge for this coming out the back end? You know, that's, I guess, what I'm asking. And so that's what I've been chasing, but that's not for this group here. But I think we've got to deal with biochar, and that's the way that we're going to have to go about it. So,
Well, maybe you guys can continue this conversation. You all can go get some pizza with Mark. And
well,
look
I'm not
forward.
allowed to do that. We're not supposed to.
Oh, I know.
I'm sorry. I've only known Tim for I don't know how long, but you know.
Well, we appreciate this great conversation. I wanted to, Courtney, you had your hand raised.
Yes, I had just chatted, I had made a notes of a few questions, but I want to make sure, the council members have a chance to ask their questions first if they did.
Was there another hand up? I just saw Mr. Morgan. Did anyone else have any hands up? I think it's just you, Courtney.
Okay. So a couple of things you mentioned, and I kind of want to apply the same question to each of these ideas. Like, is there something that the Forest Health Council can do to support? Is there a policy that would support these things? So like, for example, the first one, I know you all talked about this wood campus that's maybe being developed in Larimer County. Is there any like policy solution? Is there any program or funding or anything that the Forest Health Council could support that would, take this pilot and help make it more successful?
It would be good to talk. I mean, Josh Roberts, I think, is the staff person.
That's me, Josh Roberts, and Dwayne Penny, and our Seaport directors. So, and we need money. So I'll just put it there. So that's what we need.
I would look at the catalyst for them starting their effort, and if there was some way to expand that support to other counties that they could apply for.
Okay.
There's a lot of incentives to establish facilities of any kind in Colorado. Office of Economic Development. They're not targeted specifically to biomass, but they're certainly eligible for people to apply for. I think, I think we have to try to look at financing, mitigating some of the risk. As long as we have short-term contracts, supply contracts, it makes it very difficult to establish and invest in expansions or new facilities. But I think there's some mechanisms out there that can help reduce that risk, spread it out so that we can still make some progress, even in the absence of, 20 or more supply contracts. But I mean, that's just some things off the top of my head. When I learned that Larimer County was taking such a systematic approach, they're not just guessing, and 20 years I've been doing this, and a lot of people, they have great intentions, but they just make decisions and they don't have a systematic, fundamental way to evaluate those decisions. And that's why, you can't afford too many mistakes. So that's why I think replicating the approach at Larimer County, and I think our biomass assessment will be greatly valuable for counties to adopt. So, and that's already, doesn't need any specific new legislation, but I'm probably talking too much, but that's my answer.
Well, and I would say that is our Larimer way. And if you want to talk about the catalyst, Courtney, you're looking at one of those people that is part of that catalyst for getting that done. And our staff found the $200,000 DOLA grant that allowed us to have the funding and the group and bring the stakeholders together. And the commissioners approved that. And it's through under our Office of Commissioners with our Office of Emergency Management, which runs some of our mitigation work. And I think you bring up a good point is, I mean, the leveraging resources should look at this. We are starting to look at this as a workforce development component and seeing if there's resources or things we can connect there. So we're trying to find, we call it kind of like I said, the Larimer way. We do it with behavioral health, recovery after natural disasters, and we're using it with this wildfire mitigation and kind of closing that, making that circular economy with woody biomass, et cetera. And that's why we're also looking at maybe a sales tax or something next year to help fund, at least keep it rolling and still go for grants and help all of our partners who are important piece of this puzzle. We need all the pieces or all the legs on the stool to be functional and working. So be more than happy to, when we're ready to, set up a tour, or have those talks. But also I wanted to highlight that wildfire defense grant is that we got when they were partnering with Coalition for Poudre Watershed, Larimer County, and other partners. That is really critical because it's also building kind of that framework or that process approach. And, Josh Roberts hasn't been here very long with the county, but he has been phenomenal in bringing this all together. And so I'm very lucky. I'm a lucky commissioner. We have great staff, and I can certainly, he has come and presented in front of this group before. And we can always update it as well, but just wanted to share that. So I'm going to have to go here in just a little bit to give my speech. So I want any other questions? Allison or Courtney?
Yeah, Courtney, do you want to do your second question? I just had another, I have one more too.
Yes. Another thing you guys had mentioned were these two programs that were going to be sunsetting, and Pat did chat about one of them. I'm trying to find them now, but there were two. One of them maybe was a grant that Tim was running, and then the other one, I'm wondering, have those been successful? Is this not the time to consider that? But that seems like a policy recommendation that the council could spearhead if it's something the State Forest Service saw as successful and was wanting to extend.
So on the pilot grant project, we do get inquiries quite a bit if that's still available. I think it did fit a nice niche. The Forest Service is the one innovation grants, but there's certain equipment that's not eligible. Rolling stock, it leaves out our timber harvesting folks. We filled that gap with a little bit of the funding through our, we were a little more eligible in that sense. The other thing that it helped, again, industry told us is many of them had federal awards. What they had trouble with is the match. And anybody that goes for federal, what the grant program, the pilot program allowed them to do, if they were awarded from our grant, they could use that to help meet the match and meet the obligations they have under their federal awards. So, I know that Department of Regulatory Affairs, DORA, I think, is completing a sunset report. We gave them some content on the impacts that we saw through the 12 awards that we made. So, I take advantage when that becomes available. I encourage you to look at it, and we'd be happy to provide any information further about the program. But it is just one that we had for 1 year, stretched it out to about 18 months. And then the sales and use tax, pretty straightforward. It sunsets next year. So, and I think if you talk to the Timber Industry Association, I think it's something I've heard that their members take advantage of.
And I think that's a great point about the batching thing, because that's something we're looking at if we do our sales tax. A lot of folks can't, and we even have trouble making the match. So looking at bringing some bucket of funds that will probably maybe help with the match. So I'm going to I'm going to ask Courtney and Allison, one of you to take over the meeting. I apologize. This was supposed to be, this is speaking of it was supposed to be where I arrive after this meeting's over and then speak, and they moved it up a half hour. So I'm unfortunately double booked. So I think this has been a great discussion, but I want to just make a comment. Courtney, I think you made a good point. Those 3 questions that you've been asking about for all our presenters, maybe going forward, we have that as a consistent ask. So at the presentations that they know that's coming. So maybe we can send those 3 questions to our presenters before the presentation so they know that's something we're going to ask. We kind of did that with the Gates Foundation with Whitney when we asked her for recommendations to come back. And I think that would be really helpful to frame that conversation. So that's one thing I thought was a really good point you made. And maybe you can write those down and send those out so that we can just see them ourselves. And I think that would be a great thing to send out to our presenters before we come, just knowing that we're going to probably look or ask those questions. So I appreciate you thinking on being really proactive with that. So forgive me, I'm going to head out a little early. We had just these guys, and if there are any other questions, we just wanted to get a special, I don't know who's going to give the special session update and how it might impact our work or the special counsel. I think that was the last thing we had on our agenda. So forgive me for heading out 15 minutes early, and I wish you all a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next time. And is Courtney going to take over? Would that be okay? Or Allison, Courtney?
Yes, I'm happy to take over.
All right, thank you. And I apologize, everyone. I'm trying to get staff not to do this to me again. So we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Courtney, I just had one more question. Actually, you addressed my first thought, which was to go back to that slide, Steve, that you had with the 4 grant programs and talk about the sunsetting or the longevity of those programs and how this council could possibly support them. So Courtney, great question. You were thinking what I was thinking. My second one was just thinking about Commissioner Abe Layden, who's on our council, and the biochar efforts that Douglas County is doing and other biomass efforts, and wanting to hear from him as well at some point. I'm not necessarily saying a direct presentation on a Friday in one of our meetings, but just another key partner on this council that's putting forth processes for what they feel is good for biomass for their county.
Okay. Yeah, Allison, I think that's a great idea. And I'm actually thinking it seems like we hear sometimes that solutions, like there are statewide solutions, but then it also hears like Larimer County is doing something that's really working. Douglas County is doing something that's really working. And I wonder, maybe there's a conversation to have, if sometimes these solutions are better coming from the local level or the county level. Is there a way that as the state or the Forest Health Council, we can support counties or municipalities to be able to find these solutions? And it seems like Steve and Tim, you're talking about these programs that already do that, like the loan programs and the funding programs. And so maybe that's more, I think sometimes when I'm thinking about it, I think what's the statewide solution, but maybe it's more how do we empower local communities or counties to find solutions. So maybe that's like a flag for when we get to our deliberation conversations. Mark, what do you think?
Just 2 quick thoughts on that. The more local you can make it, the better. And I think that's a real good idea. Any program that you do try to do, eventually at some point, if it starts with a municipality, it has to get handed off to private industry at some point, because you need that long-term economic driver. And so just the fact that I see where you're trying to go, I think, and that's great to get it done, because conditions are different in every locality, and these solutions will have to be a county by county or community by community basis. They're going to look different in different places. So I think you're right on target there. And then, but I don't know that it should be administered by the county or whatever. You got to make a handoff. You're going to have to wean this thing some point, and it's going to have to go on its own, because that big problem always when you have a government program of any kind at any level to make that handoff and make it a permanent economic contributor in the community.
Yeah, I think that yeah, you make a good point, Mark, and just the how each county would be able to approach it differently. But yeah, you look at the fairly small biochar facility for Douglas County, but a lot of private lots, and this is an outlet for those individuals doing fire mitigation on their own properties to have an outlet. So very different than what a solution would look like in, say, Jackson County or Gunnison County.
Go ahead, Allison.
Tim and Steve, I'm sorry if I missed it, but we're just really looking forward to the Colorado State Forest Service biomass study. And do we have an anticipated time frame? Last I heard, it was coming out just this year, so we've got a few more months. But just really thinking, and back to one of your comments, Tim, about how this study can really help with what we're all talking about, which is how to find local solutions. Right. Or the solution that fits the local or regional place. Any intel on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think when I kind of took the project over, I thought Forest Products Week of 2025 in October seemed like, forever away. But no, I think that, we're targeting kind of that for, and like I said, we were able to just review the first section all marked up produced by our graphic designer and communications and community. So we'll be able to go kind of section by section and sort of do soft releases they're available, just because we don't want to withhold information any longer than it already has been. But no, I think that it'll align well for everything to be out, hopefully with Forest Products Week. And that's a significant milestone, because that's when the U.S. Forest Service opens their Wood Innovations grants, and that will be open for a longer period this year. So they'll be open from October into January. So hopefully that that may give someone time to digest some of the information and incorporate that into their plans for those programs this year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah. I'm trying to follow along there. I have a hunch that things are pretty busy at the State Forest Service house right now. And I know that you guys are dealing with, how to put it, 40% variability possibility in your funding sources right now. So I know that's pretty tough over there that you're trying to, but did I hear a firm date for a finished report? I don't care what it is. How far out are you, or did I miss that? And I understand the load you're under. The industry is in the same place, but
I mean, I would say, firm date's hard, because we're, even our GIS staff, that the gentleman that was doing our dashboard for that quantification and characterization section, he left for a different job. But no, I think with the way that we're working through at least those written portions of it, I think it should be up by Forest Products Week.
When is Forest Products Week?
That is mid-October.
Okay. So of 2025 or
Yes.
2022? Okay.
2025.
I don't care if it's 2026, just a date where I could pick it up and read it, and I'll be fine with it, because I do want to go through it. You guys do good work, and I'm going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question for Steve. Did you say that the report, there are portions available that you're going to be releasing prior to the mid-October?
Yes. So it'll be section 5 when the whole report is compiled, but it is available right now. I did find a couple of math errors in some of the tables, but the convenient part is that they were only off by a factor of 1,000 So it's pretty obvious that they're easy to catch. If they were off by like 2 or 3, that'd be a challenge. But no, that's available. It is on our webpage, right, Tim?
Yeah.
And I will I can drop a link to that in the chat. The firewood numbers in those initial tables, and you'll see it does stand out if you follow the math. But those require a little revision. But otherwise, that whole market study of the wood and different products that are consumed in the state versus what's generated in the state, that study is available. And it's pretty telling. Not a lot has changed. The overall volume of wood used in the state has changed since the original study 20 years ago, but kind of the same theme that about 90% of the wood that's consumed in the state comes in from out of state and is held up over time, unfortunately.
Thank you. And you'll drop the link in the chat?
Yeah. I'm not real. There we go. I think I found the chat. There we go.
Yeah, we have a kind of a news and update section on our homepage. That's where we keep all of these things kind of prioritized up front for visitors to look at. Most of what we talked about from the federal programs right there. You can click on them. But the market report, as Steve said, is there, as well as the state timber harvest wood product report that Montana put out. So
So there it is, right at the top of that news and updates. It'd be the first link there. And then you can access some of the other information about our programs.
a couple clicks away.
Thank you all for sharing that. It looks like we have 8 minutes left. I'm wondering if anyone has any last minute questions for Tim and Steve. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks for having us. I
Yeah,
appreciate
our
it.
pleasure. We enjoyed discussing wood products. So
Yeah. We might be following up with some questions.
Sure.
I think there was a lot of good content that you shared.
give us a call, Steve or myself, or even James.
Mhm.
We're happy to be of subsequent assistance.
Thank you. So just looking at the rest of our agenda, we did plan out the rest of the meetings for October, which is great. The full Forest Health Council meeting is coming together at the end of October. The last item was just sort of looking at the upcoming budget forecast or concerns, and then updates on the special session. I don't know if anyone here has insights on the special session or the budget for the last few minutes. I do not have that information to share.
I can just share what was briefly, shared also through a press release and an article from the governor's office. But, in general, the Forest Health and Wildfire Mitigation, Colorado State Forest Service, we weren't really impacted through the special session as far as budget is concerned. There was some impact to the DNR through the Wolves bill, but that does not necessarily have to do with this council. We still have a tight budget and across the board, but as far as right now, we're not impacted from those few days.
That's great. Well, I think that's all for our agenda then. Can I take a motion to adjourn?
Really quick, Courtney, I was just wondering
Mhm.
if James may have any update on that.
That's a great question. Yeah, James, do you have any other updates about, or I know you said the Wildfire Matters Committee, perhaps you could share about?
I was going to say, I don't have much information. I think Allie did a really good job covering what happened for the special session. The CSFS wasn't super engaged as there wasn't a lot going on. One of the big things that I think is worth mentioning is just the way that the legislature is trying to close some of the budget gaps. They did give the governor some executive authority to really just find his own budget cuts and then present those budget cuts to the JBC, because ultimately the Joint Budget Committee are the ones that have to deal with the budget. But they did give him some authority, and I believe that he has presented some of those ideas to the JBC, but nothing has been actually, I think, voted on or approved yet. So apart from that, I don't have much more to go over on special session, but thank you for the question, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mark?
Just had one last question if we had time, and I'll try to make it short. In the last meeting where I was unable to attend, in the minutes I read through, Christina Burney said CTIA is involved, but the timber industry could be more involved. It's tough to get those people involved. What involvement were you looking for? What message could I take back there? I was kind of out of context, so how can I help?
So at the last presentation, we heard from the work group, which I will have someone else remind me what that stands for. I think it's Wildfire Working Group. It's a group of, it's like a funding, and maybe I'll let Allison actually describe what this group is and maybe ways to be engaged.
Sorry, Courtney, and unfortunately, I do have to get this phone call, so I have to. I'm really. So, are we talking about the Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for Resilient Colorado?
Yes.
So, yeah. So ways to get engaged. This group met in person. Rob, you were there, which was great, and many others. We met just about 2 weeks ago in Berthoud to keep diving into 4 different priorities and strategies that this group has identified in funding. You know, there's a resounding theme of working on trying to figure out diverse ways to get funding across the state. Mark, if you would like, we could put you, so we have an action team that meets every other week to really get in the weeds on all of this. But if you would like, I could put you on our contact list so that you can be aware of when we are meeting. And if you or you know of anyone else in the industry that would like to be more involved in this, the door is open, essentially. So what if you would like, I could send you some information about the group and Julie at Keystone's information. And then however you want to share that with your network, that would be great.
You can do that, but I was just curious what you were looking for there, if we were dropping the ball somewhere.
No, there's no ball dropped right now. This is really an evolving conversation. And each time we get together, we're just getting a little bit deeper. So no ball dropped. But doors open. So I'll still send you information and would love for more input.
For a bunch of cheap guys, it's going to be tough. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Any other last questions for the group? Okay. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so I will accept a motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, Commissioner Medina and Julie seconds. And then a vote to adjourn.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. Unanimously. We have adjourned and have a great rest of your morning. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you.